Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad that today we have two Farkhods on this panel, and maybe this is the sign of how harmonious the relationships between two regions can be. Let me first of all express my sincere gratitude to the organizers of this seminar, the Center for Strategic Studies under the President of Azerbaijan, for extending the invitation to me to participate in it, which I find very, very interesting and thought-provoking, because it seems to me it is very timely in terms of launching a new round, a new stage of discussions about geopolitical trends, geopolitical strategic perspectives in the post-Soviet space in general, and between Caucasus and Central Asia in particular. My topic is titled Central Asia and Caucasus, between Eurasia and Euro-Atlantic, Geopolitical Lessons and Strategic Perspectives. For the sake of simplicity, perhaps I will just read a short text, to make the work of translators easier. In the wake of the Ukrainian-Russian conflict today, many scholars began to talk about the recurrence of the Cold War or a second Cold War. In the context of this conflict, the very notion of the post-Soviet space is being reread and acquiring a new sound. The second stage of independence of the former Soviet republics is just beginning and symbolizes the end of the so-called transition period. During this past period, many have thought that the newly independent states, weak, vulnerable, and inexperienced on the international arena, would be incapable to manage their independence and sooner or later would return to the old geopolitical modus vivendi, with, of course, Russian domination in that system. In this regard, the notion of the post-Soviet was understood as rather persistently Soviet, persistently Soviet than post-Soviet. The end of transition period is an occasion to draw geopolitical lessons from overall 23 years post-Soviet transformation and to have a look at the strategic perspectives. In the course of the transition period, however, the states concerned not only demonstrated their adaptability in the system, but also performed ability for geopolitical maneuvering and establishing strategic partnerships. By the way, I would like to draw your attention to this very specific term, strategic partnership. What is a strategic partnership? I define it in the following way. It's a special type of cooperation between the states which is characterized by the following features. First, the sides, strategic partners, reach the very high level of mutual trust and confidence. Second, cooperation between them is intended for the long-term perspective. Third, intensive cooperation includes not just one but many spheres: economic, political, cultural, military, security, and others, with special emphasis on the national security interest. So, as you see, it's very comprehensive. Fourth, the sides have common or very close interest in the international politics and can correlate their positions on key international issues. Fifth, such a partnership inevitably has long-term geopolitical implications, either on the regional and/or international level. Strategic partnership between states evolves from the comprehension of immense importance of one for the other, especially from the viewpoint of the national security rationale. Particularly, Uzbekistan went so far as to sign the formal strategic partnership agreements with a number of countries of the world, such as United States, Russia, Japan, India, Kazakhstan. One of the last documents signed between Uzbekistan and Azerbaijan is also called Declaration on Further Strengthening Strategic Partnership between the Republic of Uzbekistan and Azerbaijan Republic. It was signed on 23rd March 2004. The history of relations between Uzbekistan and Azerbaijan has its root in ancient times. These relations are based on ethnic affinity, similar cultures, common language, and religion. From 1997 up to now, leaders of two countries have met several times. According to the official sources, two states have similar positions on most actual issues of regional and international politics. So this is, again, the token of strategic partnership. In particular, with respect to the problem of Nagorno-Karabakh, for example, Tashkent supports the principle of territorial integrity and sovereignty of Azerbaijan and supported all Azerbaijani initiatives on this issue within the United Nations. From 1994 till 1998, Uzbekistan and Azerbaijan were the members of the same GUAM organization, from which Uzbekistan withdrew for political reasons. Despite some political confusion related to this fact, GUAM still remains an attractive forum for Uzbekistan-Azerbaijan relations to take a new dimension. Three dimensions of the GUAM, post-imperial, economic, and geopolitical, have made this organization quite unique among other post-Soviet groupings. There are many groupings in the post-Soviet space, as you know. From this point of view, GUAM indicated a nascent strategic partnership between Uzbekistan and Azerbaijan and other states of this group, so long as the latter symbolized without Russia regional undertaking of a certain group of states. Two essential questions remain nowadays at the center of most of discussions concerning the essence, the form, and the character of political transformations of the former Soviet republics and their international relations. These two questions are related to the attitude towards Russia and the fate of democracy. The previous status quo that has existed since the collapse of the Soviet Union implied the domination of Russia and persistence of autocratic regimes as a legacy of the Soviet past. Today, such a status quo is being questioned so long as the transition period is coming to an end and the post-Soviet space is being reformatted and restructured. It's not by accident that the GUAM member states signed a declaration on 23rd May of 2006 on the creation of the Organization for Democracy and Economic Development, GUAM. Interestingly, this is the only organization among many on the post-Soviet space which doesn't include Russia, and the only one that articulates democracy in the name. Besides this, the importance of Central Asia-Caucasus connection was actualized with the emergence of opportunities on construction and development of transport corridors connecting these two regions. One of such opportunities being the mega project Trasica, which the representative of the presidential apparatus mentioned today, sponsored by the TASIS program of the European Union. Another ambitious project which was successfully realized by 2005 was the well-known Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan oil pipeline. All in all, such developments have had not simply economic, but also geopolitical and strategic character. They implied profound geopolitical, economic, and even military diversification and have led to devaluation of the erstwhile firm and astonishing unity and self-sufficiency of the former Soviet family of nations. It has to be mentioned in this regard that the defense ministers of Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Georgia recently conducted their first trilateral summit in mid-August this year, adopting specific measures to regularize their defense cooperation. Ankara's participation in the nascent South Caucasus Collective Security Alliance is motivated by Turkey's ambition to become a leading Eurasian energy and commercial transportation hub, and its need, therefore, to secure the Trans-Anatolian natural gas pipeline, etc., etc. This is a telling fact reflecting new trends in the security building of the post-Soviet countries, which can be comprehended as a second stage of the post-Soviet evolution related, as was mentioned above, to the end of the transition period. In this context, the question of the main security provider for these countries remains open. The 23-year experience of 5 Central Asian and 3 South Caucasian states, especially the major conflicts and crisis situations in which some of these countries have been involved in one way or another, have revealed at least 3 essential milestones. First, Russia-led geopolitical and security architecture. Second, proliferation of security providers and eclectic security arrangements. And third, new rise of Eurasianism, Russia's revenge and new split between Eurasian and Euro-Atlantic security systems. The creation and activity of the Collective Security Treaty Organization, CSTO, well illustrates such complicated evolution. The current discussions on the CSTO have led many to the recognition of the awkward mission and ambiguous perspective of this quasi-alliance. Indeed, the current composition of this organization can hardly guarantee its effective functionality. For instance, it's unclear how the effective system of collective security on the post-Soviet space can be created only with the forces of 6 countries, members of the CSTO, whereas the CIS embraces 12 countries. It seems that this paradox will always remind of itself. There is also an awkward understanding of how the CSTO members will react to potential threats. The conflict situation between Azerbaijan and Armenia over Nagorno-Karabakh is illustrative in this sense. It's unclear how the OSCE collective rapid reaction forces will react to this kind of threat, taking into account that Armenia is a member of the CSTO, Azerbaijan is not, but both are CIS members. Moreover, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Uzbekistan, being Turkic countries, would hardly stand against their brethren in Azerbaijan. Meanwhile, political and analytical circles in Russia since late 1990s have been concerned about the formation of the so-called axis, Tashkent, Baku, Tbilisi, Kiev, with possible joining of Almaty, which can prevent Russia's becoming the center of consolidation of the post-Soviet space. This is what the Russian sources say. Russians apprehend that such a trend can oust Russia from vital geopolitical zones to its south. I don't share this view, but I only quote the Russian source. Some experts foresee 2 scenarios in this regard. Either various centers of power, especially the above-mentioned axis, supported by the West, will rise on the post-Soviet space, or the tendency will prevail of Russia's involvement in the state-building process of the Republic of the former Soviet USSR in order to prevent their falling into the Western sphere of influence. When it comes to Azerbaijan, those experts prescribe that Moscow should use all possible means to resist pro-Western orientation of this country. First, Russia should stimulate unification of the divided Lezgin people, they say. Second, push federalization of Azerbaijan. Third, articulate the problem of the Talish autonomy, etc., etc. All these factors, the experts believe, should yield the situation in which the cost of investments in oil production and its transportation would be too high. So you see how tense the geopolitical situation is in the post-Soviet space. Given this vague geopolitical situation, exacerbated with the new split between Euro-Asian and Euro-Atlantic security systems, the countries on the Russia's periphery are developing a somewhat eclectic strategic culture and seeking for a sustainable niche in the international system, which would better meet implicitly or explicitly, better meet their national interests. Interestingly, almost all 4 countries from the above-mentioned axis have implicitly or explicitly reserved for themselves strategic ties with the West, particularly with NATO. In the Caucasus, after Georgia, Azerbaijan has demonstrated strong intention on implementation of the Individual Partnership Plan, IPAP, with this alliance. According to some official sources and experts' opinions, as well as media observations, Azerbaijan has taken a path towards membership in NATO. Central Asian states have also developed quite successful partnership with NATO. In 2013, last year, the NATO liaison officer began his work in Tashkent, capital of Uzbekistan. And my conclusions. I have just several conclusions from this short analysis. The first stage of Caucasus-Central Asia cooperation gave an important experience to all former Soviet republics, the experience from which they learned sophisticated geopolitics and got acquainted with the international system. Second, being located on the strategic crossroad between Europe and Eurasia and Asia, they were predisposed to develop strategic partnership. Third, Guam is a unique organization, and it is very important to preserve it, and Uzbekistan might return to this organization. This is my opinion. Fourth, the proliferation of international security providers in this area is a matter of fact. So we have a number of international organizations dealing with security, including NATO, in this region. So somewhat an eclectic security arrangements of these countries is a relevant strategy. And the last, partnership with NATO is an open question. I think this is the twofold challenge for both, for NATO and for those partners whom I mentioned, particularly Caucasian and Central Asian countries. Now they are partners for NATO, and NATO Central Asia or NATO Caucasus partnership will demonstrate the extent, if any, to which NATO is alien or, a foe or threatening organization to Russia or not. So our cooperation of Central Asian and Caucasian countries with NATO should also demonstrate whether it is like, stipulated by their or caused by their national interests for the sake of their regional and national security, or it has a conspirative agenda like anti-Russian arrangement or not. So this is a seriously challenging issue. Again, I repeat, the cooperation between Central Asian and Caucasian countries with NATO. Because in the context of Ukraine, what we observe nowadays, there is a widespread allegation among many experts and official circles that these Ukrainian-Russian conflicts reveal nothing but split between Euro-Asian and Euro-Atlantic security philosophy, security architecture, split between particularly Russia and the United States again. So that's why cooperation between, or partnership between Central Asian countries plus Azerbaijan and Caucasian countries with NATO will demonstrate, to my mind, whether this is true or not. Thank you very much.